everybody. Welcome to McNally Jackson. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. We are so thrilled to be helping this wonderful book find its way out into the world, and we're so happy to see so many of you here, so thank you. Before I make some introductions, there are a couple of minor housekeeping things. We're going to have a signing after we finish up tonight. It is going to be behind me, behind the screen. So if you don't already have a copy of the book, go and grab one, bring it up here and get it signed. We have pre-signed copies of Nan's book, so pick one of those up if you don't already have one, or get a second or a third one. We're also going to have time for questions, so think about what you might like to ask. And we're open until 9, so stick around and join us for a drink and hang out for a while. So, by way of introduction, Adele Bertei has begun playing music in Cleveland with Pete and his legendary Peter Logner, and as an original member of the Contortions, produced by Brian Eno in New York. She was the lead singer of the first out queer all-women rock band The Bloods. Her singing and songwriting career includes recording, performing live, and writing for such diverse acts as Thomas Dolby, Tears for Fears, Culture Club, Whitney Houston, Scritti Politti, Sheena Easton, Jelly Bean Beatonhead, Lydia Lunch, the Pointer Sisters, and John Gray. Bertei played a lead role in Lizzie Borden's seminal feminist sci-fi film Born in Flames. She's the author of 2 previous books, Peter and the Wolves and Why the Bell Matters, a finalist for the 2022 Lombardo Literary Awards. Twist is the story of how it all started. And she's in conversation tonight with Nan Goldin, who's an American photographer and activist. Her work often explores LGBT subcultures, moments of intimacy, the HIV/AIDS crisis, and the opioid epidemic. Her work and life was most notably recently documented in the film All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, and her most notable work is The Ballad of Sexual Dependency. So I'm going to, thank you, join me in welcoming Yvonne.
I guess I'm going to read a little bit for you. The piece I'm going to read is about a reformatory I was incarcerated in as a child. It was called Blossom Hill School for Girls, and I'll just read a little bit from that section. Thanks. Emotions surface as I learn how to be here, to befriend these girls. I don't believe most of these girls have ever been within 20 feet of a white girl until me. But I'm guessing the devil ran through their families like he did through mine. I guess it's different because I'm white. I'll have an easier time when I get out there, but only if I hide being queer. These girls won't have such an easy time because of the color of their skin. I watch and listen. I see beauty and sadness, loneliness and pride, silliness, strength, joy, and rage. I see a thirst underneath all, like a straw sucking for air, peeping out of the eyes of a girl here and over there. I can't seem to find the same buoys, the lights and bells that once kept me afloat through the mists. And like any lost sailor, I look for anchors. I look at Slick's hands, smooth and graceful, so perfectly manicured, unblemished and glowing, and just watching them at peace, resting on her knees, gives me comfort, where just the sight of Big Al's evil hands made me cringe. Big Al's hands, so cruel as the hands that held the gun. Rumor has it that some of the girls in here actually committed murder. I don't believe it. One girl buried her newborn infant in the backyard because she didn't have the money to feed it. Where do you turn when there's no money for food, for diapers? When you have no home, no family, no books, and no help? It's hard enough to face that kind of trouble on your own, but with a baby. None of these girls seem like criminals. They're mostly truants and runaways, druggies and thieves, and corrigibles with a tendency to exaggerate their crimes. Some assaulted teachers, and yes, others have babies they couldn't take care of. I'm coming to understand how all of us have screwed up families we never discuss because we are gangsters. We are lovers. And in the unspoken deep, where the shame of seasick sailors creep, we are the disposables. Saturday afternoon, while everyone is at rec period, Buki and I walked down campus to Cottage 4, we've decided to present ourselves to Nina with all the authority our gangsterhood commands. We walk up to the door, knock, and hear old Miss Harris, the Cottage 4 matron, shuffle toward us and flip the locks one by one. What do you all want? We want to meet the new girl. Is she here? Lucky for us, Miss Harris doesn't really have a clue about what we're up to. I'll go get her, y'all stay put. Buki and I wait, posing, me in striped bell-bottom jeans and a brown and gold t-shirt. I lay my left hand on top of my upper left thigh and lean all my weight onto the right foot while I stroke an imaginary beard. We check each other out, grinning and nodding. I hear music from the day room. It's Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. Love makes me do foolish things. The door opens. First, it's her posture. Nina stands like a goddess posing with one hand on her hip, her head held so high it seems as if it might float away. Her skin is smooth and her afro is like a soft halo around her head. Browns and reds and ochres and shades of chestnut in there, all woven through. A perfectly shaped fro, like Angela Davis's. Her cheekbones are high, eyebrows perfect, eyes almond-shaped and lips like cherries, and who are you and what do you want? Nina is not smiling. The intensity of her expression shows a fierce intelligence burning like a small flame between her eyebrows. I have never seen anyone so beautiful in all my life. I try to maintain my stance despite my terror, and Buki grows tongue-tied. I clear my throat. We have come here to introduce ourselves. I'm the Honorable Al Capone, and this here is Babyface Nelson. We are pleased to make your acquaintance, Miss Charles, and to welcome you to Blossom Hill. I offer a dignified nod and shift my weight. Buki says nervously, like, yeah, welcome. Nina cocks her head a little, considering what she's just heard and witnessed. Her lips don't show the slightest curl toward a smile. She stares coldly, as if we're strange specimens, like shellfish moored in the sand, and she's deciding whether to make a meal of us or fly off. She laughs in our faces. And I'm the Queen of Alexandria. What a pleasure it is to meet you. Well, goodbye for now, pimps. And with that, she throws the door closed with a curt little slam. It all begins with humility. Acting pimpish is clearly not the way to this girl's heart. So I search within myself and think long and hard about what to do, which track to take, which pose to strike, or whether to strike at all. An act, it's all an act. It comes to pass that Nina and I are a couple. It comes to pass because I drop the act whenever I approach her and speak very politely. I try to be myself. Sometimes we'll sit on the bleachers or we'll skate and talk, and she'll tell me little bits about herself and her life. And when I become too inquisitive, she'll shut me up with a none of your business and a secret smile. That means some doors might always be locked, and I'll just have to deal. You need to get real. If you want to talk to me, be real. I don't play the game, and unless you missed it, I am not a child, and I am not no N-word. A black woman, yes, N-word never, and I don't play with no N-words or pimps, be they black, white, or calico. She skates off, head held high, everybody stares. You'd think we were in a movie. I keep skating, pretending like everything is fantastic, when I really want to crawl into a dark hole with my cripple of a heart and disappear.
Lord.
I want to read a little bit from the Mary Crest section. I was in the equivalent of a Magdalene Laundry in Ohio. It was run by the Sisters of the Good Shepherd, one of the same orders that ran the Magdalene Laundries in Ireland. It wasn't quite as draconian, but it was weird.
What is the Magdalenes in Ireland? Where all those kids disappeared?
Yes, where all the women would go if they were sexually promiscuous girls, or if they had babies, teenage women, and they were locked up in these laundries, and I think...
Laundries, literally.
Yeah, they actually had to work in laundries at the convent. And Sinead O'Connor spent time in one of those laundries. Actually, Sinead was one of my inspirations for really looking into the maternal side of my family. My mother's people came from Ireland. 3 generations of women without husbands and fathers. So it was pretty wild. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, quickly I'm going to read something about my grandmother. It was the first time, my grandmother was Irish, and it was the first time somebody came to take me on a home visit from reform school. Joni is taking me on a home visit to Grandma's, and it's the first time family has ever picked me up for a visit. And I'm afraid to feel too excited, since Carl might be there and ruin everything. Carl, my evil step-grandfather, sorry. Sister Veronica once asked me if I ever felt homesick, and my answer was a head shake. Nope. Aside from Grandma's piano, no home to be sick over. I never asked Joni or anyone else why they don't come to visit. Only weaklings would do such a thing. When we arrive, Grandma gives me a huge hug and seems glad to see me, but she looks sadder than I can remember. Her piano is gone. Carl replaced it with a Hammond organ, a beast of a thing decked out with colored levers for different beats and sounds. Bossa nova and cha-cha, played by fake flute strings and French horns. It sounds dark and chintzy, like a merry-go-round in hell. Carl thinks the opposite, says the organ is perfect and more suitable for hymns. Probably reminds him of German calliope music. I can tell Grandma hates that organ. When she begins to play, her body looks different, like a deflated balloon. No bounce. Her left hand can't beat rhythms on an organ key. You have to press organ keys, and softly. Organ keys can't swing or dance with Grandma Jo's rhythms. The piano was her joy, her life. Carl may as well have committed murder. At least Grandma is allowed to choose which hymns to play and sing. She sings a mournful "There is a Balm in Gilead." Afterward, we eat scrambled eggs, and she looks at me sadly, then goes upstairs to take a nap. I creep after her and listen at the bedroom door to her weeping alone in her room. The wooden floor is cool. I press my face there, singing quietly through the door crack. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. It quiets her and comforts me. I silently curse Carl and curse having been born a woman. In my bed at Marycrest, my mind's eye sees Grandma gazing out at the kitchen window, her lonely hands lying still among the dishes in the sink's sudsy water, all joy having drained from fingers that would never dance again. And I think, why didn't I help her with the dishes? Why didn't I tell her how beautifully she played and how happy she made me? How the roses in the garden danced when they saw her coming, and how it felt when she held my hand. That touch of warm, beloved palm, thumb, and fingers, transferring the grace of music, the love of music, into mine. I pull the covers over my head like I did as a child and sing in a mournful whisper, thinking of a favorite poem, song and poem connecting, to make me wonder, with a sadness overwhelming, that love might never triumph over hatred, that the world might never ever fall in love with love again. But had it ever? Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Okay, this is the passage I wanted to read about Marycrest. Okay. The Sisters of the Good Shepherd is a French order from the 1800s that established roots in France and Ireland before coming to America. There are two branches. The sisters in white habits teach, live, and work with the girls, while the contemplative Sisters of the Cross, or the Magdalens, are cloistered and wear brown habits. We see the contemplative sisters only at chapel and on Sundays, and we're forbidden from addressing them because they've taken vows of silence. Mother Superior has the face of a hammerhead shark. She speaks with a slight Irish brogue, the kind Grandma Jo slips into now and again. I sit posture perfect to impress her. After the interrogation about my family, the escapes, and the lack of good grades, her expression flickers with a hint of surprise when I inquire about the order. She gestures to the portraits above her head. St. John Eudes created the order, Our Lady of Charity of the Refuge in France in the 16th century. St. Mary of Frisia followed in his footsteps, found in the Good Shepherd order as an offshoot in the wake of the French Revolution. Both orders dedicated their lives to the service of women and girls who were victims of life's hardships. St. Mary was full of grace like our Blessed Virgin Mother. She had great compassion for women and girls. It almost slips out that I, too, have great compassion for women and girls. The Good Shepherd's order is a white uniform is a white tunic and habit, white scapular and white wimple, with a black veil on top. And the cross hanging from Mother Superior's beaded belt is humongous. I wonder if it doubles as a weapon, maybe a paddle? I heard nuns are mean. You will refer to me as Reverend Mother, my child. I will escort you to the large dormitory and introduce you to your big sister Constance, who will look after you while you become acquainted with your new life here at Marycrest. Sweeping her skirts out into the glossy hallway, she pauses, giving me the haughty, stern face that people in power just love to push all over you. All girls are required to hold to the same vow of chastity as the sisters. If there are no men or boys around, and what she means by chastity is not having sex, then she must realize she's talking about sex between girls. And if she needs to warn me about it, well, it must be happening aplenty between the waywards, and maybe the wimples too. I follow her piously, hands clasped in front, a good girl, and chaste for now. I'm going to read one more little piece. This is kind of a dark one. The gun is pointed at my head as he tells me to strip. I don't like anyone looking at my body. It scares me more than anything. Blankness washes over me like a wave, and I slide my jeans down into the nothingness. Lift my shirt over my head because I don't want to hear the bang just yet. I realize my face is wet because I'm crying, my face like a stone by the seaside. You don't ever think a stone might actually feel anything, do you? Not even the water washing over it? The gun against my ribs, stick against stone. I do what I'm told. He makes a sound of disgust. Little bitch, he says. He makes me lie back on the bed, takes off his pants, and points that gun at me. I want to tell him I'm already dead. I try to cover my pelvis, but he breaks my hands away. He grabs my face, forcing me to look into the barrel of his gun. Bullets, see? It's loaded. You best do what I say. I feel like I'm underwater, and his voice is underwater, and I don't know where I am, and nobody else in the world knows where I am or gives a damn. Nobody but Albert, the Vietnam vet who wants to hurt me, kill me. I'm a rock. I will not move. He holds the nose of the gun against my temple, cold metal circle boring into my skin like a spider web so very thin. He jabs himself into me inside, a tearing pain, and I hear something click on the gun. No, my mind screams over and over again, and then he's on me like an animal, and it hurts so much. The gun, my temple, the gun down there. I'm gone now. above my body looking down, watching a ghost girl on a dirty bed, and I can hear the girl thinking, if I do not die here, I will never, ever be afraid of anything ever again. Letting go, lifting up, and rising up and away, I'm in a flying saucer of my own design, one much cooler than the cartoon saucers on the Jetsons. My heart has burst open and the bees have escaped, and I'm in a spaceship made of flowers. And inside the ship, my Collier's encyclopedia and the books I love line the walls, bricks of wisdom keeping me safe. There's someone with me, my lonely girl. She's little but strong and proud in spirit. I'm so glad she's here. She has lips shaped like a bow and brown bangs. She wears little black slippers and a kerchief around her neck like a sailor. She takes my hand and my heart turns light. We'll go back as hummingbirds, I say to her. Yes, we will, she answers. She is tender and wise. Like me, she has seen things. She bends her head, looking down toward the bed, deep in thought, troubled. Her eyes tell me someone did things to her too, ugly things. We fly higher until the bed disappears, and we look down at Earth, an enchanted crystal ball of swirling gases and jewel box colors, so magical, filled with strange beauty and mystery, and cruelty, too much cruelty. What will we do with it? What will we do? Thank you.
God, that was so disturbing. Thank you for reading that part. It's the darkest part of the book.
It is, it's part of the darkest part of the book. Sorry to torture everybody.
Do you want to contextualize it?
I had run away from a foster home because I was in 7th grade, junior high school, and I loved the family. It was my second foster home. First one was disastrous. The second one, they were lovely, lovely people. My foster sister, who I was very close with, discovered that I was having a love affair with another girl in junior high school. And she flipped out. And she beat me so badly that she broke the blood vessels in my left eye, and it was filled with blood. It just turned red. I thought I was going to go blind. I was petrified. And because of it, and the shame of having to go back to junior high school exposed as a dirty queer, I ran away. I was 13 years old. I went to downtown Cleveland and met somebody that a Vietnam vet that I thought was a benevolent spirit who was going to take me to a hippie commune, and that's not how things turned out.
Thank you for reading that. It's incredible that you're able to deal with that now.
It took me decades and decades to deal with that, and many years of therapy. So,
how do you remember your life so well? Did you write during those years?
I didn't. I repressed a lot, and then as years of therapy and sobriety, all of it came back up, and I started
every
writing.
detail. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I noticed when you're talking about like the pain of being unhoused and having a child you can't take care of and not having books. Like I never noticed that before. So is that what got you through, or music, or?
It was a combination of books and poetry and music, really. I mean, I think many of us in this room would agree that when you're a child, emotionally, it's hard to you don't have emotional intelligence. You don't know how to parse one feeling from the next. You just know that you're scared or excited, but sometimes a song can just mirror what you're feeling in such an extraordinary way. Like, I always bring up the song Ferry Cross the Mersey by Jerry and the Pacemakers, for those of you who know that song. I remember being so moved by that song as a child because he's singing about his love for his home and being away from it. And, you know, knowing that I was going to be unhoused, homeless, and hearing that song it just moved me, and it mirrored what I was feeling in a way that I didn't have words for. Music always did that for me, and yeah, it was a life raft. And I think for many of us, music is a life raft. You know, it's our go-to when we're feeling different things.
When did you start singing?
That's with my grandmother. My grandmother played stride and honky-tonk piano in speakeasies during the Depression. And my mother would, she was raising my mother as a single mother. During the Depression, it was a very dangerous thing to be doing at that time for a single woman. And she would bring my mother to the speakeasies and put her in a basket at the foot of the piano. And my mother would hang on to the piano leg to feel the vibrations going through her body. And my mother became a dancer in musical theater. And when I was little, I would sit on the piano bench with my grandmother, and she taught me how to sing harmonies to the Boswell sisters. Boswell sisters. Andrews sisters were great. Boswell sisters knew how to swing, right? So, yeah, so I started singing with my grandma.
What happened to your mom?
My mother, my mother was institutionalized throughout her life. She had a very sad life. She was paranoid. She was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. And something I learned in therapy and through the writing of the book was how her supposed affliction, and despite the abuse, her supposed affliction was so imaginative and creative and brave. And I was able to transmute the darkness of my mother and those wounds into a badge of courage for myself. I don't know that I would ever have taken the risks in my life had it not been for my mother's imagination.
But how did her life end? Did you see her after all those years?
I couldn't see her for most of my life.
Yeah.
It was too painful because she was very, very lonely. It was such a wound for me to see her. Because also I didn't have the facility to take care of her.
Yeah. She was institutionalized.
She was institutionalized, but she also had a little apartment towards the end of her life for a while, but wasn't doing well, had no one really looking after her. And I felt terrible because I did see her, a few years before she died. I just didn't have the means to take care of her.
Your description of her is like a real homage. It's really a gift to her.
Well, yeah, the book is
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much,
And
Nan.
you see the side of bipolar. You see that like ecstatic side and the beauty of that.
Yeah.
And then the other side, the darkness. But you show the like imagination and creativity and beauty of that.
Yeah.
And it's a really amazing portrayal of the mother.
Thank you.
Thank you. Why do you use Maddie? Why don't you write in the first person?
It took me a long time to find the right voice for the book. I tried to write it in third person. I mean, I went through all these different voices, and then finally, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, I decided that, Maddie Twist was a great character name to go into the story with some armor, as a Trojan horse, to actively go through what I went through as a child, but with this character name gave me some safety and some perspective. Yeah.
But it's so first person.
Yeah, it's first person active.
Right.
But as Maddie Twist, that helped me. It was like, the armor I needed. A little veil of protection, really.
There's a lot of talk about trauma porn nowadays. And I think
Trauma porn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that this book is completely evades that completely is like the opposite of that, and I'm proud of you for that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I read a lot of what they call misery memoirs, you know? And I thought, oh, I don't want this to be that. But also, like I said, it was like an alchemical transmutation I went through in my childhood and as an adult to take all those experiences and find the light. And I found the light in other people and in music and in books and poetry, and felt very fortunate. I found the light in you.
Yeah?
Oh my goodness, are you kidding? When I
We should tell the story of how we met.
Yeah, this is great. So
1975 Cleveland.
1975 Cleveland.
What was the name of the bar?
It was called the Shaker Club, a gay bar in Cleveland, right? And I'm there dressed like in my Sergeant Pepper's uniform, looking like a little boy, and I look over, and there's this stunning woman.
I had on a white, cashmere.
White cashmere. She had on a string of pearls that just laid perfectly in her collarbone, and this beautiful red, like her hair up in a chignon, and like it was like, whoa! And she checked me out and started snapping pictures of me, right? Because she was there taking pictures of drag queens at the Shaker Club. And we picked each other up, and she took me out into this limousine.
Rented
limousine. And that began our little love affair, right? It was wonderful.
50 years ago.
Yeah, and she showed me these pictures of her friends from Boston, drag queens, and beautiful. It was like seeing gay people for the first time in all their tenderness and hurt and pride and joy, all those things she was able to capture in her photographs. And it gave me strength as a queer kid, because back then, if you were queer, you were ostracized. You could lose your life. And meeting Nan and seeing those pictures just opened the world up that much more for me.
And then you came to Provincetown.
Yes.
And you were living in a tent?
I was living in a tent in your backyard, if you'll recall.
Yes.
Good times, man. Good times.
And so, how did you get to New York? I think we lost track for a little while.
Yeah, I was in a band with Peter Lochner, who was part of Para Ubu in Cleveland. And him and he kind of discovered me singing and did so much for me in terms of turning me on to French poetry and different musics that I'd never heard. And he was such a mentor, and also an alcoholic. And he died of acute alcoholism at 24. When he died, we had always planned to move to New York together, and he passed away, and it was such a blow. And I moved to New York to carry on our dream for him and me.
And how did you first get with the band?
The Contortions.
Right.
I immediately joined the Contortions.
History.
And we completely dissembled music. We were brutalists. And it was quite fun.
Thanks to Michael.
Yes, Michael Zilka.
Yes.
And Michael Zilka, who is my
And
publisher
C
for
Records.
Twist and C Records. Yes. Thank you, Michael. He was the first person that put me into the recording studio, actually. And here we are, coming full circle. I love you, Nan.
I love you too. It's 50 years.
I'm so proud of
I'm
you.
so proud of you.
We're survivors, darling.
How do you think this book will be received in terms of the racial characters and the way they're presented?
I'm not sure. I mean, so far, I haven't gotten any, cancellation notices. I had to tell the truth. And there was one young editor who wanted me to kind of wash out a lot of those truths. And I wouldn't do it. I had to be brave. I had to tell the truth of what it was like to be in that time and place, what was going on in terms of being queer, in terms of race. And I was a white anomaly in a black culture. And that black culture was so much more joyful than the culture I came from, you know. So I write about all these things in a very honest way, in terms of our history. And we need to really know our history. We can't deny it or pretend it didn't exist.
Do you think there should be trigger warnings on your book?
No, trigger warnings.
Any trigger warnings?
No trigger warnings. I mean, listen, everybody's very sensitive these days. But darkness exists. Trauma exists. If you're young, you're gonna hurt sometimes. That's what life is. And don't deny history. It's so important to know where we come from. And to recognize that we're all wounded, and unless we expose those wounds to the light and talk about them in a really raw and honest way, they will never, ever heal. And that's one of the reasons I feel that this book hopefully will be important in some way to some kids who... Thank you.
Do you think we should open it up to the audience?
Yes.
I'm sure they have a lot of questions.
Oh, I don't know. Do they? Any questions?
Do you need a mic? Oh,
No, I don't need a mic.
okay.
I'm all friends of Adele Bertei. I just want to say,
Sandy!
I want to say, Deli, I applaud you for your honesty. And
Aw.
I think more than ever, it's time for everybody to stop being so fucking sensitive.
Thank
We're
you.
living in a world that's so fractured, that's so out of control,
Yes.
that a person's story, the authenticity of your story, has to be told. And there was a time when we all merged together, and it was
Yes.
painful and it was scary. We came to big cities, we had these experiences, and who are we fooling? And who are we kidding? And who are we trying to protect, most of all?
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
don't think anybody in this room is scared of the truth, but if you're younger, it's time to buck up, little ponies. I love you.
Amen.
And I saw your documentary last night,
Oh, God.
and it was amazing.
Yes. All the beauty and the bloodshed.
Thank you for taking down the Sacklers, and I hope we can fucking pull them right down into the gutter they came.
That's right.
They're
Rock on,
taken care
man.
of. They're taken care of. Everyone has to go after other people.
Okay,
Everyone
well,
should find their enemy
you're
Yeah.
right.
and get actors.
Yeah. And the enemies aren't people like us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem.
Right.
Canceling people is not a political act.
No.
Right.
And there's so few of us on this side compared to the other side, and they're armed and dangerous.
Mhm.
And we need to stick together.
Yeah, we need to know our enemies and go after the real enemies, not each other. So.
And triggers are good. You learn from triggers. The world's not a safe place.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra.
I love you.
I love you, baby.
This is a love fest.
We need more love.
You have a question?
How did you come to join the Contortions? So you moved to...
I moved to New York.
To New York.
One of the first women I met was Lydia Lunch. All right. And I was at her loft hanging out with her, and James Chance, Pat Place, and Jamie Nares were playing some ungodly noise in another part of the loft, and there was an empty drum set. So I sat down at the drum set and said, fuck it, I'm just gonna play, right? And James turned to me and said, "You've got natural rhythm. Do you want to be in my band?" And that's kind of how it happened.
You mean there was no audition?
That was it.
You know, he
Who
liked.
named it the Contortions?
Pardon?
Who named it the Contortions?
I think James did. Yeah.
But Adele,
Oh.
that was so different from the music you did with Peter, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, that was a real leap. Why do you think you did that? Because that was pretty soon after he died.
Well, yeah. I had a lot of rage. I think I had some reasons to be rageful. And the music was a way to exercise a lot of demons that we were all feeling at that time. And it was a brutalist music. It was, we were disassembling. I mean, when you think about punk, it's a 3-chord progression. It's very pop in a way, right? With no wave music, we were like ripping all that stuff apart. And but it was actually still very polyrhythmic, because we would play like stabs of sounds against each other in very rhythmic ways. And it was also kind of like the theater of cruelty of Antonin Artaud, because there was theater involved too. I mean, James Chance would jump into the audience, pull some girl, and start trying to make out with her, and the boyfriend would be incensed and punch him, and then there'd be like fisticuffs happening, and George Scott and I would jump into the audience, the rest of the band would keep playing, it would be like, an Ernest Hemingway slugfest going on in front of the stage. It was wild. Yeah.
And you had a question? sir?
Yeah, you're about to head to Cleveland on Saturday, right?
I am.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, when you go back there, do you ever go by like any of the old houses that you lived in with the foster families, or the schools that you were at, and does any sort of any special, I don't know, ghosts appear, or just...
Well, it's funny because Marycrest was abandoned. I went back there maybe about 8 years ago and went to the grounds of the Catholic convent school, and it was so scary. We went, it was just dilapidated and ghostly, and
Building's still there? Wow.
somebody took it over now a couple of years ago and turned it into some resort or something. The neighborhood where my Italian grandparents were, it's completely overgrown. It was hit during 2008, with all the
Double mortgaging.
yeah, and it's just houses with vegetation taking over, and the streets, cracks in the cement, and the earth is taking it back. There's a lot of areas of Cleveland that are, it's like Detroit and Cleveland.
Yeah, the dirt abandoned cities.
Yeah,
You can add
abandoned.
Youngstown to the list as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But do you, in answer to his question,
Yeah.
do you go by any of the
No.
places?
No, I don't even remember the addresses of those houses.
Oh, really?
I was so on the run and so adrenalized during my childhood, running from one place to the other, that I just blocked so much of the actual, geographics,
It wasn't like you were getting your mail there.
Right. And I'm very curious if any of those girls that I knew back in Cleveland would show up at the reading. I'm hoping, because in a way also part of the book for me was paying homage to those girls, that I call us all the disposables, girls that were thrown away by the system, by their families. When you get out of being controlled by the state when you're 18, what do? There's no programs to help kids transition into adult life out in society. So a lot of the book is really a beautiful homage to the girls, and whose stories may not ever be told. So
I wanted to, excuse me, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No, that's
I wanted to come back to the James Chance and Anya Phillips period of your life and
Yeah.
say, you probably might remember if Anya was there, I was with her in Sylvia.
Oh yes, Sylvia. Yeah.
And the music is exactly as you described, with the screaming horn and the complete discordant everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I remember best is you belting out Chain of Fools. And it was like, I loved, R&B and soul music as well. I don't think that many did. When you did that, that's like something I could so immediately respond to. You were
You and now.
Where are you performing now? Who are you singing with?
Well, I'm not performing right now. I had a crazy history with the music business. That's another book.
Yes.
No, but I'm starting to release music again, and I have a new song coming out tomorrow. Actually, it's called it's called Savage is the Wolf, and it's coming out on Peace Biscuit Records. Bill Coleman, I think, is in the house somewhere. Bill, are you here? Woo! Woo! And yeah, so I'm doing it one song at a time,
Do you want to
testing the
premiere that
waters.
song?
No.
I think everyone would love that.
Let's see. I think there's a part where I'm singing in French. No, I can't do it. I'm too shy to sing in front of a small room of people.
I get that.
You get it. You're a singer. You know, Esther.
I wouldn't do it.
But you can listen starting tomorrow. And I also have a song called American Elegy that's a real political slammer that's on Spotify, Apple Music, and all that. So I'm doing it one song at a time.
But are you playing with a band now?
Not right now. I would like to. So eventually.
There's a band in the house.
Is there a band?
A lot of musicians here.
This one. You can put one together.
Yeah, Sue Schmidt is here. Yeah.
Felice is here.
Sue Schmidt is one of the first musicians, one of the first women musicians I ever saw play. And she was in a band called the Poor Girls, and she played with Peter Lochner, one of the first all-women bands in America. Sue Schmidt.
Wow.
Yeah! Thank you for coming, Sue.
Adele,
Yes.
was the Bloods an extension of No Wave, would you say?
No, the Bloods was more trad. We were very rock and roll, and we did like punk, funky rock and roll, you know?
But it wasn't accessible. I saw you at the Peppermint Lounge.
Oh, it wasn't accessible? Gee, thanks. Yes.
You guys were really scary on the subway.
Oh.
You were, yeah, because, you know, when you would see a punk rocker or a full-on dyke, they were very noticeable, you know, in the landscape,
Right.
barren landscape. And
Yeah.
it's like, so, you guys were very effective.
On the subway.
Oh yeah, I saw them on the well, a couple of members, maybe you, on the 6 train.
Well, we were
And
pretty tough.
It was very, very much so. It was
They were breaking heads.
it was like art. But I put posters up for the Peppermint Lounge, and that's how I got to see you at the Peppermint Lounge when you played there.
Okay.
I beg to differ with that.
Oh, Kathy Ray, the guitar player in the Bloods, is in the house.
Oh well.
Yes. She's scary.
Stand up so we can hear you better.
Her and you, yeah.
Hi, Kath.
We were just out. We did whatever the fuck we wanted.
Yeah,
We did not care. We were brash and queer, and I mean, I was outed by
Andy Schwartz.
Andy Schwartz,
New York
That's how
rocker.
my mother found out, but it was like the early 80s, late
Yeah,
70s.
80, 81.
And, I mean,
Yeah.
we were into melodic music. I mean, I've always loved. I had a hard time with all the dissonance in that punk rock. I grew up with musicians, and I wanted to play really, you know, R&B, funk, and you know, just because I love melody, and that is why I love you and your voice.
Thank you.
And it's also just the visceral. I've worked with a million singers, and they could be amazing, but if they don't have the ability to not have fear stop them, you know, it's so frustrating to try to pull something out of a singer. And that was the thing I think you and I just always were like, we just had that, you know, we weren't afraid. I guess there was no choice, you know. And thank you so much for such a graceful and honest and painful book. And I was really touched when you were reading it. And I love you a lot. And I know that it's important for that voice to get out no matter what. And thank you, Nan, for your part in your film, and I love you too. Good to see you.
Nice to see people from that period, right?
Yeah, it's a great room full
Yeah,
of
incredible.
wonderful people, faces that I love. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Everybody has to buy the book. I can't recommend it